What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like the floodgates have now opened for Nintendo's next big release coming up this week, and actually a little bit even for a big title coming to the PlayStation 5 here in the next few weeks, which means, of course, spoilers are all over the place. Data mining is happening. I'm going to go over exactly what's out there without spoiling anything here today. Also, we are going to be talking about that Concord situation, the $400 million figure for the budget, really being brought into question. There's a lot of differing opinions out there right now on it from analysts. And then we'll also be talking about a surprise announcement, this coming from RGG, and it's certainly an entry for Like a Dragon that, well, I don't think anyone saw coming. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with that PlayStation 30th anniversary line of new hardware, as while we saw all the bundles and extra features and fun stuff that they had planned, they didn't really tell us the pricing. Well, we are starting to get at least some information around that. This coming from D-Labs, which you can see posted up over on their website. And they listed all the different bundles and then went into details around some of the pricing they've been able to figure out here. So for example, the limited edition PlayStation 5 Slim, that's the digital one, the console bundle will cost exactly $499. So even if you look at it versus just like the regular PS5 Slim, it's a $50 difference there. But obviously, you'd be buying this looking for that unique piece with the nice 30th anniversary sort of design there. I was interested in the DualSense controller. It is coming in at $80, which is actually the same price, I believe, was the Astrobot controller. So, okay, cool. That, again, falls in line with what I was sort of expecting there. Unfortunately, we don't have information on the bundle that everyone's really curious about. That's the PlayStation 5 Pro bundle for the 30th anniversary, where many people are sort of putting that around like the $1,100, even $1,200 mark. I think it's $1,000 minimum, and it's very likely to be a couple $100 more than that. And once it sells out, get ready for triple, maybe even 4 times the price on eBay, but I guess we're going to find out soon because these do go up for pre-order, I believe, later on this week. Also, we do have Silent Hill 2 coming up here in a couple of weeks, October 8th, and I am very curious about this one, which we're actually going to double back to this here soon when we talk about some of the leaks that are getting out there online, but we did at least get some information as to when the game could be going to other platforms. This was actually at the end of their recent trailer. At the bottom, it says it is also available on PC, but it's not available on other formats until October 8th, 2025. So there is a 1-year timed exclusivity deal with the PlayStation 5 in terms of, I guess, just consoles. And it does make you wonder, well, obviously they would be thinking of the Xbox, but there is always the possibility, just throwing it out there, that maybe Konami is thinking, could we get this on Nintendo's next system as well? It's okay, it's on the PlayStation 5 for a year, and then it shows up on Xbox and Switch too. That's the biggest thing right now, is if Nintendo's system is up to the task, we'll say, of handling some of these third-party ports and games a bit better than the current Switch, sure, but even just making it possible, I think you're going to see this a lot. You're going to see a bunch of these games that were originally thought of just being like PlayStation 5 and Xbox specific because the Switch couldn't handle it. Third parties are going to go crazy, I'm sure, moving their games to this device. So I wouldn't be shocked if Silent Hill 2, sure, going to the Xbox, but maybe Nintendo's next system as well in October 2025. Oh, and in a shock to no one, we did find out the developer behind The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This was actually posted. We can see this is over on Twitter from Naruki, who pointed out that in some of the copyright information that was shared, Grezzo was listed. Again, not at all shocking since they did develop The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the Switch that came out years ago. And looking at this, my biggest question currently is, were they able to smooth out some of the performance with this big release coming up soon, as it looks obviously very similar to Link's Awakening, same viewpoint, a lot of the same tech and designs, because Link's Awakening, fun game, did have some issues when it came to frame rate, some stuttering and stuff, so maybe Grezzo was able to work that out, although there's a lot more going on, seemingly, in Echoes of Wisdom with the creation elements, some of the physics that are involved. So that's the thing I'm really curious about. But yeah, it looks like Grezzo, again, not a surprise, is developing this upcoming Zelda game. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a couple of games that are starting to appear online early. One in particular is very early. The other one, it looks like the floodgates have just absolutely opened up for it. See, with The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, there were a few that were posting images of the game that was sort of in hand. There's one image and video that showed them launching it on their Switch, and you figure, okay, that's going to then lead to the game just being dumped online completely. So I thought it was in the viewer's best interest to at least say, hey, you're going to want to watch out for spoilers. The game seems to be out there in some capacity. Now, however, it does indeed look like the game has just been dumped online, and it is everywhere. So we can see over on Eurogamer, they say over the weekend, hour-long streams of both games, that's, by the way, Echoes of Wisdom and Silent Hill, are popping up online, most of which have been chopped up into small social media friendly pieces and shared to sites like Twitter X, Reddit, TikTok. Saw their streams on Kick, and often these come up without spoiler warning. So it is important to remember this if you're scrolling through TikTok. Yeah, you might just all of a sudden be face to face with a major boss or major plot point in Echoes of Wisdom without even realizing what you're looking at until it's too late. Now, unfortunately, Echoes of Wisdom, that is coming up on the 26th, so we're not that far off, right? We're a couple days away from it releasing, and okay, great, there it is. And we should even find out reviews for it soon, and obviously we'll have a lot of video footage once that embargo lifts, so that, I think, is less concerning right now versus Silent Hill 2, which that's not out to October 8th, as we already mentioned, and it seems to be out there now. At least some have been playing it and posting long streams of them doing so. That looks just like an early copy that's gotten out there, and that should be more controlled because we know the homebrew hacking scene around the Switch is just significantly more advanced right now. They've accomplished way more than the PlayStation 5 currently, so dumping Silent Hill 2, distributing it, nowhere near as widespread as what we're seeing with Echoes of Wisdom. In fact, Echoes of Wisdom has also led to all kinds of data mining that's happening. People are getting the entire map of the area, all the different major plot points and stuff are getting out there. We're seeing some of the character models being pulled and different costumes and things being spoiled. So a lot of stuff is just flying around currently for Echoes of Wisdom, and it's actually getting pretty difficult to avoid these things. I mean, I'm just seeing it now pop up on Twitter pretty easily, just kind of scrolling through it. Okay, there's something with the Echoes of Wisdom, and yeah, it's got like thousands of likes on it, and it's some sort of costume or figure or a scene seemingly from, go figure, an emulator that's being posted there. Silent Hill 2, again, seems more confined right now. I am curious how this will turn out for Bloober Team, because for the longest time after they were revealed to be working on it, there was so much doubt cast on them, and a lot of that's just from their previous history with just gaming, but this could end up being a big win for Bloober Team, and I do hope it is, because I would hate to see Silent Hill 2 come out and just be bad, because that is a game that people look back on with very fond memories, and if you ruin that with a remake that is just not very good, well, people will remember that forever, and that'll just completely mark Bloober Team going forward. So, again, look out for Echoes of Wisdom, spoilers and stuff. They seem to be all over the place as the ROM is just circulating everywhere, and Silent Hill 2, while it seems confined, doesn't mean they won't go through the entire game and just start posting at places like TikTok that can take you by surprise. Next up, let's talk about Concord. I did an entire video Saturday going over this specific situation with all the ramifications coming out of it and what we learned from some of the development environment around this game, but there was one figure that's been passed around so much, and that is this supposed budget that was put aside for Concord, or how much money it racked up in order to get the game out the door, which seems to be a figure of $400 million. Now, this was shared by Colin Moriarty on his Sacred Symbols podcast, and he sort of tries to explain how they got to this number with two different pools of money. Half of it, $200 million or so, coming from Probably Monsters from the start, to basically when they sold the studio to Sony, and then Sony dumping about another $200 million in with the publishing deal, and then getting the studio, but the studio cost not necessarily being part of that. It's all over the place, but it comes out to right now the supposed number of $400 million to create Concord, which sounds mind-blowing. In fact, now we're seeing a lot of people kind of questioning this number, many analysts or even people just in the industry kind of looking into it themselves. For example, we see Christopher Dring. We pull up a lot for different sales numbers and stuff across the industry saying no game has that dev budget. The press reports are the laughingstock of the industry. Concord didn't even get any above the line marketing spend. We also have Ethan Gotch, who did talk a bit about the workplace culture there, with a lot of a lot of hesitance to speak up or give any kind of criticism for the game, which seemed to be a big problem. They labeled it toxic positivity. I'm saying I haven't been able to confirm the budget yet, but 400 million is not the number I've heard. And then Tom Warren says, I'm amazed, but also not amazed that publications have run with this number. You only have to look at Probably Monsters funding to know it's nonsense. Well, a lot of the funding for Probably Monsters came out to about $250 million, but that wasn't just for Concord. It was spread out from multiple different projects. So I kind of get what he's referring to there. But really, at this point, it's hard to get a gauge on it, because let's say you are someone who was working on the game, doing all kinds of development for it. You're not necessarily in tune with the amount of money that was spent on it, especially over the course of several years. In this case, Concord being an 8-year project, and you're probably going through things that are being said through the grapevine. I feel like someone who would have at least a better grasp on how much money was spent was probably a higher up at Sony, right, who was covering all of this and probably brokering the deal and stuff between Sony and Probably Monsters, or maybe the director on the game who had been there for the vast majority of that time. And even then, you're not necessarily privy to all the things going on when it comes to, say, marketing or even the sale of Firewalk to Sony. So this is a situation that we'll probably never get a definitive answer to, because I have no idea why Sony would come out and say, yeah, we spent $400 million on that game that we shuttered after 2 weeks. Unless an investor really shows up and starts pressing them on it, or we find it in their financials, which even then they can kind of dress it up and hide it a bit. I just don't think we're going to get a straight answer from Sony. So this might end up just being something we're always going back and forth on. And to be honest, the number just sounds downright unbelievable when you say it out loud. Next up, let's talk about a new entry in the Like a Dragon franchise, which, I mean, this franchise is getting game after game after game, seemingly every single year, which we'll actually dive into that a little bit as to how RGG is able to keep up with this sort of release cadence, whereas we look around the industry and it takes years and years and years just to come up with seemingly a teaser for a game that's still a few years off. Nonetheless, the new game we have certainly caught me by surprise, and I'm sure many other people. We can see some of the trailer here, and this is for Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. They say a new legend begins as you step into the steel-toe boots of Goro Majima, a man who has lost his memory and reinvents himself as a pirate on the open sea. Embark on an over-the-top modern-day pirate adventure with an ex-Yakuza, now pirate captain, and his crew as they engage in exhilarating combat on land and sea in the hunt for lost memories and a legendary treasure. I absolutely love this, by the way. It's just, if you play any of these, I would even say, I mean, somewhat recent games, but like, especially just Like a Dragon in general, Yakuza 7, Infinite Wealth. I mean, you see some of the zaniness in these games. This leans fully into that, and I love it. Okay, so this was unveiled at RGG Summit last week. The story is about, we'll say, 1.5 times bigger than Man Who Erased His Name. It is coming to Xbox Series, Xbox One, PS5, PS4, PC through Steam. Yes, so we do still have those last gen releases. Get this, coming out February 28th, 2025. Yes, the PS4 and the Xbox One live on. The VCR lives on into 2025. Absolute madness on that end. But this, I saw this and I said, okay, that's fun, because it does kind of make me think, and I saw other people mention this, that Black Flag moment almost that we had with Assassin's Creed now coming to Like a Dragon, because they showed them out on the high seas and their ship, cannons were going off, and then they get into the combat, and it's just completely different than like the turn-based stuff. Because it is technically a spin-off, and we've seen this before, the main line with Ichiban is like turn-based and stuff. He likes Dragon Quest, so okay, that makes sense in his mind. It's turn-based. But then you go off into some of these other adventures, and it's just action-based, like we've had with older Yakuza games. So it is a fun way, I feel like, to continue to kind of shake things up a bit here and there with these different releases. And Gene Park actually had a very good write-up and interview with RGG, where he did kind of talk to them about the development cadence that they have with these releases. He says, I spoke to RGG Studio earlier this year to talk about their fast dev cycle. They think it's peculiar that other game series practically reboot themselves every entry. They're inspired by TV shows and film that reuse settings all the time. So, I mean, yeah, if you think about it, there have been like, 5 releases in like the last 4 or 5 years or something from RGG with these different Like a Dragon games, some spin-off, some mainline. But if you play them, yes, they're reusing certain assets and environments, the map sometimes, But really, a lot of people have bought into this franchise as just an ongoing thing. So for them to say TV series, for example, as something you end a season, you're like, oh, that was cool. And then you come back the next season and still the same characters. And a lot of times you're still in the same apartment or something if it's a sitcom, but you still enjoy it because you kind of like the story and stuff that they craft and you like the characters. And that's kind of what we're seeing here with RGG. So it makes sense. And in an environment now in gaming where development times take so long, I don't mind it. If you reuse the assets, but the game is legitimately fun and it feels fresh, like they're going on a pirate adventure now. It's like, yeah, that seems very, very different than what we've done in the past. I'm all for it. So I do like this approach, and yeah, I'll be checking this one out when it comes out February in 2025. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a potential release that we should be keeping an eye out for, maybe going into Tokyo Game Show. And this one would come from Capcom, and no, it's not Mega Man. But we can see this is posted up. This is over on Game Rant, who says, reliable industry insider Lunatic Ignis recently claimed on their Discord channel that Capcom is gearing up to reveal Resident Evil 9 with a teaser in the coming weeks, months. It can be argued that the timeline for this announcement is rather vague, but it does line up with another nugget of exciting information the insider provided, which is that Resident Evil 9's launch is reportedly being planned for the second half of 2025. So I've actually heard this a few times now with Resident Evil 9 being thrown around, potentially as a big reveal for TGS, Tokyo Game Show, that happening here actually in a few days. And I do think it's possible it shows up there as a teaser from Capcom. I don't necessarily think they're ready to do the full reveal for it just yet, though. And really, that could come maybe for the Game Awards. And I say that because TGS does seem right now, for Capcom, heavily focused in on Monster Hunter Wilds, and that makes sense. That is coming up sooner than, we would say, Resident Evil 9. If that is second half of 2025, yeah, their next major blockbuster release is Monster Hunter. It'll be huge in Japan. Guess what? Tokyo Game Show. You feel like they're going to want to really show that one off, which it's reported that they're going to have a ton of demo stations for the game on the show floor. So I think Resident Evil 9 could be there in the sense of, hey, we do have another Resident Evil game coming here soon, which they've pulled that before. Hey, we're working on the next big Resident Evil game. It's happening. And that was it. They didn't show us anything. So that could very well be the case, but I wouldn't necessarily go into it expecting anything tangible, we'll say. Maybe just a mention and then a heavy focus on Monster Hunter Wilds. Otherwise, though, the Game Awards seems like a great place for that to be announced. A nice setup, and then head into 2025 with two big releases, Monster Hunter Wilds and Resident Evil 9 to cap off the year. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played any of the Like a Dragon or Yakuza games? 58% say no, 42% say yes. We're getting there, okay? We have to keep working on getting that yes past the no for this series. I didn't get into it initially. It did take me a while, and I haven't even played all of them, right? Nothing like that. I really liked Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon. The turn-based stuff was fun. I liked Yakuza 0. I thought that was good, and honestly, if you're looking around for one to pick out, that's probably the one most people will recommend to start with. Although, again, this new pirate game, maybe I'd go, hey, you know what, that looks like fun. Maybe you'd get a kick out of this. It's action RPG based, so that probably works a bit better for people who are kind of turned off by the turn-based stuff. Although, I think the turn-based stuff is done really well in the past two mainline games. Still, there are a ton of different titles to pick from. I kind of like sort of the wacky nature they've really gotten into, especially recently with some of these games, but for the most part, you can pick any one of them and try it out and see what you think, although I'm going to recommend either Yakuza 0 or Yakuza 7 to get started. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Grizzly Adams, who says, the fact that PlayStation isn't releasing just the shells for current PS5 owners is criminal. Even if the shells were marked up due to the 30th anniversary, it'd be a much easier pill to swallow. Yeah, that's the thing that's kind of annoying. A lot of us saw the shells and we said, well, this is perfect. Sony doesn't have to try to sell us a system every time. They can just manufacture these shells, sell them to us probably for way above what it costs, but we would gladly pay that over having to buy a $400 or $500 or $1,100 bundle system. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case yet. I'm still holding out hope that they have a reveal plan and it's like, okay, look, we did the bundles. We did some of the system limited edition stuff here. Now we're going to do the plates for people who missed out on those. I'm crossing my fingers because come on, Sony, like, even if you showed up with those for $70 to $80, people would fall over themselves trying to get those shells. So I'm hoping they have that planned, but most likely it'll be the slim shells, let's be real. So here's hoping you have a newer slim PS5 for that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Friday Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to see a mod for the GameCube that completely unlocks the potential for it, and you don't even have to pick up a soldering iron to install it. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.